When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions, and it is the Scandal Panel. Back again, Mark Cripps and Keith Leslie. It's so good to have you here, guys. And I gotta let you know that when I mentioned that next week's guest, Bonnie Critchley, is going to be on the program to talk about how her representative in Battle River Crawford is actually doing, Pierre Poilievre, as he returns to Parliament. I don't even know if he's even been back to the riding since the by-election, but I want to talk to Bonnie about his performance, as well as everything going on with Carney and Alberta. And you know what? Those of you who have subscribed to the show, we love you. Thank you for building this pro-democracy community. Let's get to 10,000 subscribers. Thanks for sharing the clips, of course, across social. They're doing extremely well because this is an important conversation now more than ever that we have in our democracy. And I have to tell you guys personally, as the Scandal Panel, when I mentioned that Bonnie was going to be on, someone mistook it to mean that you guys weren't going to be on this week. And they actually sent me like a sad face, like I need the Scandal Panel. It was the sweetest thing. So I've heard from many of you that Fridays you count on us to give you the truth as we see it, to share with you the news as we have it, and to, as always, talk honestly and with commitment to protecting our democracy and protecting our country. And I want to say on that note, there was, of course, the terrible assassination of the podcaster and entrepreneur and organizer and significant personality within America, especially in the right-wing system there. And nobody deserves to be killed for their opinions, period. This is the OShow. Strong opinions. I value that highly. We should have freedom of speech and freedom to criticize our political leaders, to criticize policies and actions without anybody committing any kind of political violence. So I've denounced it many times. I denounce all hate and political violence against anybody. There is zero excuse for it. And let me just start there with you, Keith Leslie. You are a veteran journalist, highly respected across this great country of Canada, and probably bigger than that. We do have OShow listeners across the globe. I want to just ask you if you have any thoughts on the escalating narrative and the threats of violence and the things that we're seeing, and whether or not you agree with me that we should condemn it in all forms, no matter who it's coming from.
Oh, it has to be condemned. Absolutely. I mean, this is just what we are not about. And it's the last thing we wanted. We've talked about the MAGA influence creeping into Canada. This is what concerned me after this assassination of Charlie Kirk, who has said some truly repugnant things and has offended a great many people. But he's always done it in the context of let's debate politically. And his slogan was, prove me wrong.
Sure.
So he's engaging young people. He's going to campuses. This is what we want. Yeah. Places where people were afraid of free speech for many years. He's back there and he's prove me wrong, let's debate. So this was something I think to be admired. And to see people in Canada, including some Canadian media members, taking glee in this assassination, talking about you reap what you sow and all. What on earth is going on that could happen in our country, that we're pleased to see a man assassinated for his ideas? As I say, even if you felt they were repugnant, and I can agree, many of them were at times, no question about it. But he was a provocateur intentionally. He was trying to engage people, get them riled up. Even if you're riled up on the other side, he wanted to talk to you about it, get us all engaged. That's what we need. That's what we're about on the OShow, having your opinions and defending them, not with a gun, for God's sakes. It's just, and the immediacy of the stupidity of the online world that we saw now. Some poor guy in Toronto, 77-year-old guy, wakes up. He's been identified online with his picture and his name as the killer. Sure. What the hell's going on? Like, some poor random bugger wakes up and his picture's been, and it's being used for clickbait to say he's the guy, we got the guy. I mean, it's just so insane. And yet people who did online post these things, taking glee or being happy that this man was assassinated. I hope you're not trying to go to the United States anytime in the next year or two, because they're actually now, they've even said, we're going to be looking at your cell phone, your social media postings. And if you said anything, happy to see this man assassinated, you're not getting into the United States, but I bet you that detention period will be longer than you'd hope for, and it will not be a pleasant one. Like, what on earth are we doing? As Canadians, really? We're going to take glee? We're going to be pleased to see a man assassinated for his ideas?
I don't think
It's
most
just so
are.
far off the base. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
don't think most Canadians are. I think most Canadians know that Charlie Kirk had a family. Certainly, people that would watch this show and follow my stuff understand that I believe strongly in strong opinions and expressing them. And, throughout my career, I've had pushback on that and I've gone through it. I get a lot of death threats for my views. I'm used to it. It's wrong. We should denounce it. And anybody who is taking glee in the assassination of a person, anybody that is, pushing more threats or saying that, all conservatives are hated or all right wing are hated. Like, it's nonsense, right? In Canada, that's just not how it is. And Mark, did you want to weigh in as well?
Yeah, a lot has been said, and I don't think there's anything new to say other than a few things that affected me. Number one was when it happened, my daughter had just come home from school.
Yeah.
I was seeing the news on television and I was mortified. I didn't know how to react. And then I had mentioned to her that, because she has mentioned Charlie Kirk before, because he's a social media star, he's on social media feeds, or he was. And she said, "Oh my God, Dad, the video." And she came and she showed me the video. And I thought to myself, my kid does not need to see this kind of violence. In how mortified I was. And she showed it to me. I said, "Please turn that off and do not show me that again, and do not watch that again. That is sick. That is awful." Secondly, the thing that I wish for, honestly, with all my heart, is that Donald Trump takes this as a moment. His first reaction to this, to just blame another group of people without any evidence of who the suspect was, just fuels America has got some big freaking problems right now with assassinations of political figures on both sides of the aisle. And this is an opportunity for Trump, I feel like, to take the tone down, to admit that they have a problem. This doesn't need to be about guns, okay? Let's deal with the bigger problem first. Well, guns are the biggest problem of all, but let's deal with the problem, the fact that we have polarized to the point now where we are at war with each other, and that is totally dangerous, unnecessary. And I think, I think you said it and Keith both said it, like, it's okay to have an opinion, right? I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. It's fine. But at least let's have a conversation. Let's have a debate. Kirk was trying to do that, right? In many ways, he was trying to do that. I agree. I didn't like what he espoused, but I didn't listen. And it was my choice not to listen to it, right? So I just ignored it. But I hope that, as now the suspect, or a suspect, has been arrested this morning. I'm sure we're going to find out more about this person in the coming hours and days and all that stuff. And I hope that, as Kirk is laid to rest, and his poor family and all the sorrow that goes with this kind of thing, that we realize that this isn't a moment to go at each other. It's a moment to kind of like, holy crap, like, is this really what we want? It reminds me of the Kennedy era and how things just got so crazy and so polarized that we were killing people. And
to your point, though, I mean, I also found out about it from my teenage daughter, right? Saw it, and I said to her immediately, I never saw live assassinations like that. Like, we were protected, whatever you thought of the news back in the day and how they decided what narrative the world heard. They didn't show us that stuff, right? How many years was it before the Zapruder film came out? So,
Yeah.
I mean, we were not exposed to seeing that kind of terrible, terrible violence. They must have seen it hundreds of times. Kids, teenagers are going to have their reactions. They're far more aware of, the conversation and his legacy and everything else than I ever was. Because like you, Mark, it wasn't on my radar particularly. But the point is that, as younger people process this information, we never had to at that age. We didn't have social media. And speaking of social media, just one warning out to our audience across Canada and the world. The law enforcement in the US are saying that foreign adversaries, are using social media to stoke this moment.
Yes.
They are behind some of the division and the attacks on both sides. They are trying to get all of us to feel like all of us are at that level of anger and violence, and we are not. I love conservatives. I have many friends who are conservatives. I absolutely do not want MAGA taking over the Canadian Conservative Party and being anywhere near what we're seeing down in the US in terms of its narratives and regressive policies. But I love Conservatives. I love Alberta. And we're going to get into this massive shift that just happened with Alberta and Carney that happened this week. But I love Canada. I've lived all over the place and around the world. So our show, my commentary, comes from a place of warning. Sometimes I'm sharp, sometimes I push back, but I am not somebody who in any way thinks any Canadian is evil or anything like that. It's not about that. It's about, let's make sure that our dialogue and our leaders are doing things to advance our country and our security, our sovereignty, and our economy. So I want to start there, guys, and I also want to talk, of course, and maybe let's go global first, because we're going to get into Carney's announcements, all the premiers' reactions, including significant reactions from Conservative premiers. We'll get into all of that, and Poilievre returning to Parliament, some of the shit he said this week that really upset me, and I told him so. But let's start with globally. I mean, right now, NATO, as we know, for the first time ever, fired shots since the Second World War. It wasn't just that they scrambled the jets or that they put in a peacekeeping force or whatever. NATO rose, and they're saying, like, this is a different place we're in now. Article 4 was invoked by Poland, which was an emergency meeting of NATO states. Obviously, Russia was testing NATO by sending in those drones the other night into Poland. They fought back, but now we've got Macron from France sending fighter jets. A number of other countries are announcing this morning they are sending fighter jets to the border of Poland to Ukraine, because they know the risk that is coming from Russia. And so, guys, the drumbeats of war are louder than I've ever heard them before. And we need to look at it straight in the eye, as we do on this program, and talk from the heart about where we think we are as a country. And I have to tell you guys, the comments from our viewers, they don't always agree with everything I say, you say, or you say, but they absolutely appreciate that we leave it all on the table on these scandal panels. So let me start with you, Mark. Where are you when you saw the fact that NATO is effectively mobilizing on the Eastern Front?
Well, it's not just the drone incursion the other day, which you mentioned was absolutely deliberate, but Russia is preparing for a massive offensive in the coming weeks, and Ukraine is obviously, so they're bringing in massive amounts of reserves. They have been saving their armor and artillery for a massive. So as we all know, winter is an awful season in that part of the world. So Russia's trying to take advantage, I think, of the fact that, the world's superpower, the United States, is distracted by a whole bunch of other things, doesn't seem to be ready or willing to offer the same level of support for Ukraine as it seems to be for Israel, which is, obviously undertaking I don't even know what to call what's going on there, without getting accused of, whatever. But I don't know, like, when is enough enough? I'm not really sure how much is enough in Gaza, but in Ukraine, like, I think it really is going to come. I think, in a way, maybe it's good that Europe is coming to this reckoning that they are alone in this fight. And, it reminds me a little bit of the Second World War, where the U.S. sat back and just sold everybody arms, right? Sold everybody arms. And then they come in at the last minute, and then they save the day after, after much of the work has already been done. And then they write and they make all their movies and they create their folklore about how they saved the world, right? I mean, I think that this reminds me a lot of that same situation. And I think, all the European allies are doing the right things, but somebody's got to cross the line. Putin can keep crossing the line, and no one else is willing to cross the line. Like, how many lines?
Apparently, right? Putin has been, well, we know that Obama did the red line in Crimea and then let Putin walk right over it, right?
Right.
So this has been a failure of U.S. policy and the role that they were given after the Second World War. For everything you said, they did vault themselves into the position of the shining city on a hill that would defend the world and defend democracy as they saw it. They didn't always do the right things, but there was certainly a sense that they would be behind it. Trump told NATO that he was going to pull back support and made them put more money in. So in a way, NATO is stronger and readier for this more ready for this moment. But to your point about lines, didn't Putin say that Russia respects no boundaries, like they see no borders? So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be up, I think it was Macron, or maybe it was, I think it was Macron who said, we'll show Russia borders again. But the thing is, NATO, and Trump said today, he's not going to defend anyone. Like, this is not how he sees it. He's nativist, he's America first, he's all those things. Whether or not they're going to roll in at the end and save the world, I don't know if they're going to do it this time. Keith, where's your head at?
Well, I think what we're seeing right now, and it's going to grow and get worse and worse, is the U.S. is clearly preparing to abandon Ukraine completely. They might sell some weapons in exchange for mineral rights, maybe, or whatever we can, like it's, some sort of deal that can be made. But for the most part, and we can see it with the Republicans, they're now starting to talk about how we can't afford to send all this money to Ukraine, and Ukraine is corrupt, and what are they going? All this narrative is just going to grow and grow and grow, and Trump is just using that, as you say, to basically ignore their NATO commitments, which is why we're seeing the Europeans stand up, arm up, get ready, go to the borders, and prepare for this, because clearly the message to Putin is, well, the United States is not going to do anything. The biggest standing army they've got, they're not going to come in and keep you in check. Anytime Trump sets a deadline, 2-week deadline, Putin, as usual, just ignores it, says, no, there's that great online puppet thing, no, I will not do it, no. Okay, bye. There's nothing for Trump to do. He won't do anything, and Putin clearly knows this. And of course, the rest of the world are wondering, well, geez, what's this signal sending to China? And see, we're getting Taiwan, and we've got all this stuff going on. But I think what we're really seeing now is as close as we've seen to out-and-out multinational war in Europe since the Second World War. I mean, this is going to expand beyond Russia and Ukraine. I mean, Belarus, I don't know if they're actually involved at this point, but they're damn near being involved. They're getting weapons staged there. What else is going to happen? Is another, border, Poland's airspace was violated, building was shocked up. What's going to happen? How long is the world prepared to take this before they say to Putin, no, we've seen this game before. You have to be stopped. And where do they draw the lines? Do they let him keep the Crimea? Do they push him back from Donetsk or the Donetsk region? It's so fraught with tension right now, and no one's doing anything from the United States side of the thing. The world leader, as you said, that used to guarantee the law and order sort of post-World War II system that we all enjoyed, they're just abandoning it. And I think, as I say, the Republicans at their heart are viewing this as basically an economic matter, and they want out. They just want out.
But Keith, maybe I'm at the point now where maybe we should just remove the U.S. from the equation and let Europe make its own decisions. It's like Trump's making all the decisions on what everybody can do, and yet they don't want to support the war effort, right? It's like, we'll make all the decisions, but you don't get anything from us. If I'm Macron, I'm like, you know what? I've had enough of fucking this Putin bullshit. We are going to take a stand. We are going to send troops to Ukraine. And if Russia wants to kill our troops, I mean, I know this sounds very provocative, and I know, and everybody's trying to prevent, but this is how World War fucking 1 and 2 started. Everybody sat back and went, well, it won't be that bad, or, oh, well, if we just give them this or whatever. Like, I mean, come on, people. Like, somebody's got to take a stand. UK, Germany, whatever. Enough. And the Poland excursion of those drones is a clear sign that Russia is saying, you're all weak. You're all weak. You won't do anything. Your daddy Donnie won't support you. They need to just fucking remove him from the equation.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. And just on the Gaza thing, I think that you can be supportive of the people of Israel and the right for Israel to exist in that area and to have peace and everything else as a 100%. Democracy. You can completely support the people of Israel and also support the people of Gaza and say that the Netanyahu regime has gone way too far. It's gone way too far. It had a right to defend himself and a right to respond to the terrible attack that happened that shocked the world. But when people are starving, when it is an actual famine, I mean, that's way too far. I think we can all agree on that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just didn't want to leave.
Most Israelis agree. A lot of Israelis agree with that as well, right?
The bad acts of a regime and of a
Yeah.
corrupt leader, we can condemn those full-throatedly and also want all the people in the region to live in peace and safety, right? I just don't want to leave that sitting on the table like that.
No, enough of the killing.
About this world war, I've been calling it World War III, and here's why. It's not about European nations. Literally, Canada is part of the coalition of the willing, and it is against the coalition of the killing, against these hostile authoritarian regimes that are lining up. And we've seen them lining up, and they're not subtle. They're not subtle. So I call it a world war because the world is bifurcating along those two lines. Are you pro-democracy coalition of the willing, or are you pro-authoritarianism coalition of the killing? I'm putting it in simplistic terms because this is just, I'm seeing the lineups happen, right? We're seeing the shifts, the world order that was established after the Second World War and was said at the time, I think it was Roosevelt, they brought this up before, who said, I hope this world order lasts as long as the people in this room are alive. We've passed that threshold now pretty much, and people have forgotten the lessons of World War II. And we're seeing nations having to line up against each other and make this decision. And I say that having both lived in Belgium, where the Battle of the Bulge was, where people would thank me every single day for the sacrifice of our brave Canadian soldiers in World War II, and also having lived in Okinawa, Japan, that still has 50,000 US military service people there. F-18s flew over us every single day, multiple times. I've been on the base there, and I even went to the War Museum, where we saw that Japanese brides would use the parachutes as their wedding dresses, right? I mean, like, war absolutely sucks. And when the whole world gets sucked into war, nothing good comes of it. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And what we are seeing now is this sphere of influence thing. I think to go to the US is thinking on this. If Putin gets to have his neighborhood of Europe, and Xi gets to have his neighborhood of Asia and Taiwan, and Trump gets to have his neighborhood of the Americas, including Canada, we are fucked. That sucks. And so we have Carney taking a stand. He did say he'd put some boots on the ground as Operation Reassurance in Ukraine, as a post-conflict, peacekeeping kind of activity. But I don't think we're at that moment. To your point, Mark, I think we're at a greater escalation. We've never been in a more dangerous place in the world in our lifetimes. And we just have to say that. And so unfortunately, I don't like war. We've got to defend democracy from this authoritarianism, or it gets worse for the entire world. Keith?
Absolutely. I just don't think that Canada, our military, is equipped for military engagement and fighting. We are peacekeepers by nature, and by our missions that we've had. For the most of our international missions have been in recent years not Afghanistan obviously, but others have been peacekeeping missions. And so I think it's scary when we start talking about, ask any of our Afghan veterans, do they want to go back into a warlike situation? How are they dealing with life after that? I mean, it's horrible. It's just horrible for people, especially the young men and women we send to fight these damn things.
Absolutely. I have kids.
What it does to their lives. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you both have kids who, if this happens in a couple of years, how do you stop it? How do you prevent them? And you were talking earlier about, the kids seeing the assassination online. And 2 days before that, it was the stabbing of that poor Ukrainian woman on the rail car in the States. And again, they're seeing the whole video. Whereas mainstream broadcasters, I know I'm off on a tangent here, but broadcasters stop that. We wouldn't even show you a body under a body bag sheet or a sheet. There's just no. We just don't do that. But here, these kids are subjected to such horrors, and I worry that desensitizes them to this. So when we hear people of our age talking about war and it's all too bad, and the North Koreans already in helping the Russians, and this is going to lead to World War III. And they've seen so much online, they become desensitized to stuff, and they're not paying real attention to the news, but they hear a lot of this Russian talk and Russia and evil and Trump. And what do they see? Most of what they see is Donald Trump, because he dominates so much of the media, and he's downplaying any of that or ignoring that or talking about anything but the Ukraine situation or trying to humiliate the Ukrainian president. I mean, all of it has left our young people, who are the ones going to end up going to fight this damn thing if we end up actually in a true broken out World War III. They don't even know what's happening right now. They don't know what to believe, what not to believe, what's really going on. And so this is where we're back to the coalition of the willing, but basically the defense of democracy and getting our kids to understand what's at stake here. What's actually at stake, and it's their future.
And just one last point on this, and then we'll pivot to more Canadian news. But I have to say, the only thing I think might be different, and only maybe because you don't have kids this age in your home and you're not talking to them every day, and maybe Mark can let me know if I'm off course here. My kids and their friends absolutely know what's going on. They absolutely know the stakes. They are not desensitized to this violence. They're horrified by it. They are used to it, but they're not desensitized to it. And it's shocking and alarming. And more than us, they know that their lives will be affected by this global conflict. They know that their lives won't be the democracy with the nice house and the picket fence that their parents had. They know that their lives are going to be fighting existential climate change. I mean, their heads are fully on, and they fully know what we've done as a world to lead them to this terrible place where they're going to have to fight for the things we took for granted our whole lives, right? And and so they are. I have hope in our youth. I just don't want them to have to do this or see this or experience this, because they often break the news to me because they get it on their phones faster than I even see it, right? One last point on this, Mark, if you want to weigh in on the kid thing, and then we'll move into talking about Canada.
I think it's a really good point, because and I feel so hopeless about humanity's need to repeat its mistakes over and over and over again, and to throw a whole generation of people into the meat grinder for all the mistakes and for all of our lazy selfishness that we have. Like, I mean, I spent 2 weeks in Bosnia with the Canadian Armed Forces in the 1990s during the Bosnian War, and I'll tell you, when you see war with your own eyes, not on a friggin' telecast or a TV or whatever, it is so it changed my soul in a way that I don't think any event in my life ever has. And it made me sad and cynical about humanity and our propensity to just continually repeat mistakes and let our differences get in the way and fight over it. And I'm mortified at the fact that we're walking our way right back into this again, 60, 70, or 80 years after the last one, and we didn't learn anything. The slaughter of almost an entire race of people by the Nazis, like all this stuff, the amount of Canadian soldiers and Americans and Russians that died in that war, like so many lives lost forever. And that's the big thing for me, is that I cannot believe we are so fucking stupid. We are so stupid.
I hear you. And you know what? Keith asked how veterans are feeling about it. We'll have a veteran from the Afghanistan war on the show next week, Bonnie Critchley. She was on the front lines. I mean, she was in combat as far as I'm aware. So, I mean, let's find out from Bonnie how she feels about all of this escalation as well. I was just telling her this morning that we might need to talk about it, because whatever's happening in the world is what we talk about here on the OShow. So thanks, guys, for that. What a somber way to start off a scandal panel. But I mean, how can we not? Because shit sucks. However, some good news. We're probably midway through the program and we're getting to the good stuff. I actually wore this it's like a horsehair braided bracelet that I got in wonderful Alberta when my family was there during the pandemic. We took an RV across the country called Rhetoric and spent a lot of time actually in Alberta. I love this thing in honor of Alberta, which I've always loved, and am so glad to see, and I can't wait for you guys to tell me what this frickin' means. Carney and Danielle Smith being buddies on camera, shaking hands, laughing, talking about how Carney finally understands the West or whatever. I mean, like, we saw Tim Houston from Nova Scotia, and I want you to weigh in on that, of course, Keith, giving big props to Carney this morning. Wab Canoe, really thrilled about the major developments with the Churchill Plus thing up there in Manitoba. We saw Evie in BC come out today with a video about how thrilled he is about the projects that are happening. I mean, but let's start with Alberta, because damn, I did not think that in 2025 we would see Danielle Smith and Mark Carney shaking hands and smiling. I felt for the first time like maybe Alberta separation is going to be all the way off the damn table, as it should be. Let's start with you, Keith.
Well, clearly, some work has been going on behind the scenes, as they always tell us it is. And at times we wonder, is it really? I mean, we hear, like, I'm not so sure negotiations on trade with the U.S. are happening much behind the scenes, but this clearly work was being done. Alberta had some very serious concerns. They were expressing extremely loudly, to the point of some factions threatening separation and referendum vote on separation. So I think the Prime Minister knew this was one of his first premiers that he had to sort of, really deal with, to bring on side, to get the United Canada front going. And clearly, Doug Ford was already on side. He might as well have been wearing a Liberal coat, for God's sake. Certainly a lot of Conservatives think so. But Danielle Smith was not. And she had some, she was taking the federal government and Carney, the new Prime Minister, to task publicly, going at him, going down to Mar-a-Lago and meeting with Trump. And, clearly not playing on the Liberal playbook on this one. And, on the Team Canada, she was really not on side. So to see this, The optics are everything in these kinds of things, as we know. She wouldn't have been seen photographed with the Prime Minister, all smiley, if she wasn't getting some of what she wants in return.
Yeah.
And that's how politics really works. And of course, he's playing the Alberta card big time. You know, basically, I grew up here. I'm from here. Why haven't they signed McDavid yet, by the way? I mean, perfect tone, just the right tone in making a serious announcement, threw it in, and you come back later. I need to be serious about this announcement now. But saying all the right things, I think to Albertans especially, the Prime Minister does get us. You know what? Yeah, he is basically from here. So perhaps that in itself, and you know, they're able to present that to the Premier Smith thing. You know, we're coming in hard as Albertans. This man is going to be portraying himself as nobody. You know, you can be against him or you can work with him, and he's got the purse string. So what are you going to do? And I think politically, she saw what's going on, and I'm sure she's got internal polling that's showing her that the separation referendum crowd is really as small as we all hope it is. Yeah. And that she better get on side and, you know, get what she can out of this Team Canada approach that needs to be done. So I think what we're seeing here is politics at work, as it should be at work, and hopefully we'll get some actual real details as we go forward.
And since you mentioned the referendum, I promised Lukasik, the former MLA, I think he was, Mark, who started the petition for the plebiscite to keep Canada together, Forever Canada. I promised we'd mention it. He's got a request out there if you want to support Alberta staying together. Great. And also, Mark, really interestingly, and you can decode this for me. You spent more time out in Alberta recently, I think, than I did, or you seem to have your pulse on the ground there. I saw somebody say, you know, Danielle Smith has now betrayed the separatists, and, you know, and a big trash post on Danielle Smith. So is her aligning with Carney actually not only going to help her in the UPC party potentially with their image and their issues in Alberta? Like, where do you see this going?
I think there's a lot of things at play. First of all, I think that, you know, for these large infrastructure projects to go through in reality, so we heard the 5 that were announced yesterday. They were all kind of like, let's admit, they were kind of low hanging fruit. They were things that they knew that weren't going to have controversy, could get done. I think that's a great way. Start fresh, get on your front foot, and announce stuff. There's going to be another round in November, right? Keep that in mind. There will be another round in November. You know, I believe Carney, and it's true that the conditions for investment aren't there yet for a pipeline. I think that and Smith knows that, and Smith is hearing that from the big wigs in Alberta, the investors, the big companies, the CEOs, who are saying, look, like, we believe, like, we're on board. Like, we think this is going to happen. We think Carney's going to deliver on this. And she's like, oh my God, like he's listening to her. So I think she's also hearing, I think she's her base, that base that wants to separate. I mean, honestly, you can't run your government with this fringe group that's trying to drag the province down. She sees an opportunity here. Carney's done wonders in making a relationship. It's so different from the previous government, which was like, oh, we want to be friends with Alberta, but they're mocking them and fighting with them. And Carney's been very good at being diplomatic and complimentary, and he's reaching out. And I think you said, like, there's background work going on here with Carney's you know, advisors and cabinet and everything else. So it's a new page. The other thing I think that's at play is, look, Pierre Poilievre is not polling very well. And you notice I practiced saying his last name.
Well done.
Oh, there goes my drinking game. My husband and I sit in Punta Canada, listen to the Scandal panel on Friday nights, and we drink every time we hear you say Poilievre wrong.
So he's not popular. 50% of Canadians, according to recent polls, don't think he'll ever be prime minister. I mean, that's pretty damning. You know, and that's a quarter of his own supporters. I mean, a quarter of Conservatives don't think Pierre will ever be prime minister. So if you're going to ride on the train that look, for all intents and purposes, like, come on, I mean, we don't need to candy coat this. Carney's kind of a conservative, right? In a lot of ways, he's a conservative's dream. He's kind of a middle of the road. He's not extremist. He's not beholden to these extremist groups. He's a business guy, and he sees an opportunity. And this is the key. You know, they're going to spend a lot of money on this nation building project, but now more than ever is when we need to do this. We need to transition. We're not playing around. This isn't a joke about separating ourselves from our reliance on the United States. No, we're done. That day is done. And Carney said that quite clearly. And I think, Smith is reading the tea leaves and saying, you know what, I want to be on this train. Just like Doug Ford, Houston, even Scott Moe's got to be happy because one of the nation building projects is in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, everybody's rallying around Carney. Does she want to be the one looking like the child that's, me? And I'm confident that we're going to see something in November that has a lot to do with why Danielle Smith is acting this way.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, Canadians elected Mark Carney because we wanted a serious, intelligent person who gets results to come in and figure out this situation. We abandoned our left, our right, our political affiliations to have a top global economist come in and help us through a trade war. And when I see Mark Carney and Danielle Smith shaking hands and making Canada look that much stronger, and when I see conservative premiers come out and speak for Mark Carney and make Canada that much stronger, that is all the way elbows up stuff. And so when I see Pierre Poilievre post breaking news, elbows down because of some policy and talk about Trump popping corks in the White House at Canada's expense, Poilievre's weak language hurts Canada. What are you doing? We are not only in a trade war, we might be in real war. And the last thing we need is for anybody to take our patriotic battle cry of elbows up, whatever that means to Canadians, and mock it and put it down. When Pierre Poilievre says elbows down, he is echoing MAGA talking points and attacks on our country. You can criticize Mark Carney all you want. It's your job. But you don't have to do it by denigrating Canada's sense of power and purpose and patriotism in this critical moment for our sovereignty and our economy. Pierre Poilievre is not going to be prime minister when he uses language that weakens our country. And you got Mark Carney out there doing things that strengthen our country, that conservatives appreciate. Keith?
Poilievre clearly fails to read the room, and he's not listening to the same advice he got during the election campaign, which was pivot a little bit. Get away from this. Canada is broken. Talk about the crime and the bail rates if you want. There's absolutely some issues there to be had and that people are concerned about. But it doesn't make Canada broken. It doesn't make people fearful out on the streets. It's that kind of MAGA-type rhetoric that actually turns people off. And I believe it was Robert Fife who on CBC, got famously called out, well, people think your leader is a dick. And, there was a big controversy over that, but that basically summed up the situation. I mean, if that word language was used in polling, he would get that check mark. I mean, it's just, he doesn't come across as someone who's personal, trying to win you over. He's trying to scare you over to his side. He's trying to say things are so bad, you need a new heavy-handed leader coming in and we'll do this. We'll make it all better. Really? How are you going to make it all better? Because we don't feel...
Right?
There's crime. There's problems with the healthcare system for sure. And we're seeing conservatives privatize it as the solution. So I don't know that that's helping his situation either. But him just in being so negative at a time when, as you say, Canadians for the most part are united. We're looking to get our economy back on track away from the United States. We know that era is not just something we can renegotiate. It's basically done. Whatever we can get for a trade deal, okay, that's going to be good. But it's not going to be something we rely our entire economy on. It cannot be. And we know this is the future. Poilievre, as I said, doesn't seem to have grasped just that simple fact that people elected Carney, as you said, because we wanted a businessman, who many view as pretty conservative anyway, to take over and deal with the art of the deal master, Donald Trump, and deal with the rest of the world because it's a whole new world order. Is Poilievre prepared to deal with a whole new world order when he's still echoing last year's losing election slogans of Canada is broken? I don't think so.
He's playing checkers, and Carney's playing chess. This is the. I don't think I could say it any more distinctively that Poilievre is just and he every move he makes. So even around crime, yes, absolutely. Who doesn't want to see stronger bail rules cracked on a crime every time? Pierre talks about it. Carney just kind of says, yeah, you're right. We're going to do that. Or they just do it. So every platform that Pierre has been kind of, Canada's broken. We need more oil. We need more investment in this. We need blah, blah, blah. Carney's doing all of that. So I don't know what he's going to run on other than being a dick. Right. And if that's your, there's enough people in this country that will vote for someone who's a dick. Congratulations for you. Well done. Good for you. I'm, have at it. But I don't see,
64% of Canadian women don't seem to want to vote for that particular dick.
He's got to feel helpless. He's looking at a long road of You know, he's going to go into Parliament, and then he's just slowly going to be put out to pasture. Because he's never beating Carney. He's never beating Carney.
I feel like we've got a lot of good farming and horse and all that analogies going on. We were talking about the horse trading that was happening behind the scenes.
Pasture.
In Alberta, my horse hair bracelet here, and then going out putting Poilievre out to pasture. You know what? I think Carney will put Poilievre out to pasture. And what I'm hoping for is that conservatives, yes, I am bifurcating between the traditional conservatives, many of whom are my friends,
right,
want smaller government, more work on crime. They want more, jobs, more prosperity, jobs for youth, extremely important. They want to live in a safe country, get about their business, take care of their families. That's what I hope the Conservative Party of Canada will get back to. Not this dark and grievance-filled nastiness where it's never about solutions. It's not even about good opposition. It's about saying stuff that only serves to weaken our country at a time when, no matter how you feel about a political party, you should feel like you want Canada to be as strong out there on the world stage as possible.
Of course we do, but there are some conservative friends of mine who really do feel that Mark Carney is almost evil and that he cannot be trusted. That the writings in his book about the World Economic Forum and getting us to not fly and then eat meat and all that kind of stuff. That he's going to basically ID chip us all and force that the world is going to change to a liberal authoritarian type regime. I don't see that, but there are some conservatives, as I say, who are very concerned with his spending and the amount of deficit that he's prepared to run up and this kind of stuff. So they're true conservative values. And they're not so concerned that Poilievre isn't a likable leader. They just want a conservative leader who will take on the big spending liberal government. So I think there's some legitimacy there. There is some support. There's some ground for him to work. But if he comes back to Parliament next week and just acts like he did before the last time he was in Parliament, it's not going to win over any more people than it did the last time. And I think Carney, as you say, will at least be able to stave off any threats of Poilievre trying to get an election against this minority government, because I just don't think anyone else is prepared to have one yet, other than him. So he's going to go. If he goes back in and really starts, this government needs to come down. We need to have an election right away. I mean, my God, I think Canadians are just going to roll their eyes at that. As I think I said in the last podcast, he should give the government, okay, for at least a year, we're just going to criticize you on policy, not try and force an election over something that no one really wants or needs. Let's just we're going to hang on you, hammer you hard. Well, let's stick to policy. Let's stick to real ideas. But I think I'm hoping for too much from the man.
Well, you know what? It's a playbook. I've written about it in lots of newspapers over the last few years. It's a MAGA-style Trump playbook. It worked in the U.S., obviously. We see Poilievre echoing some policies, some of the rhetoric from MAGA. We see some of the actions. We see the sloganeering. We see some of the campaign tactics. It's not subtle, but it's also not working. And that's because Canada does not want what we are seeing in the United States. We do not want MAGA, not its authoritarianism, not its raids on the street, not sending people, kidnapping people and sending them to foreign gulags. We have immigration that we need to get under control so that we have a better system that supports everyone who comes to this country and everyone who's in this country. But we don't want ice here. The only ice we want in Canada is for skating and our drinks. That's it. That's all we want in this country, of that kind of fascistic garbage that we're seeing in the United States. More and more, Trump is isolating Americans, keeps coming up with reasons why people are going to be punished if they come into America, keeps kicking people out of America, makes it hard for companies to set up or to work in America. He is hurting their economy every single day with his temper tariffs, and it is coming to a point where that golden age of America is going to be more like a gilded birdcage, where Americans might have some prosperity, maybe at least some of the upper echelons of their society might, but they're not going to be able to travel the world and to be truly free because of what he is doing to their country and to their reputation. So we don't want that in Canada. Canadians do not want anything MAGA. We eschew that kind of authoritarianism. We eschew those cruel and harmful policies. We understand our strength is in diversity. We understand fixing problems is the way you build a democracy, not going on about how broken it is and leading by fear. Last thoughts, guys, and you can give me your stress meter. I feel like we're less stressed at the end of this deep conversation than we were at the beginning, because we haven't dropped nearly as many F-bombs as we usually do. So, guys, give me your last takes for our audience and where you are on your stress radar today.
Oh, I'm I'm the same. I'm really stressed out. I'm very nervous. I'm very anxious.
Mhm.
Um, and that what happened in the United States on Tuesday or Wednesday, sorry, makes me even more anxious. I think what we all need to recognize, and I hope people recognize through all of this, is that this isn't left versus right. This isn't gay versus straight. This isn't white versus black. This is about very powerful people who have a vested interest in keeping us at each other and keeping us divided because it's financially it works for them. It's a new world order, and we are falling for the game. And I think, I hope that people get wiser and wiser as they start learning that, and talking to each other, that, like, honestly, like, we're not, my father's conservative. I love my father. Can I talk to him about politics? Yeah. Do we differ a lot? Yeah. But I still love him. My sister's conservative. I can talk to her. Like, I love these people. So, and I can have an open conversation with them. I love everybody of any background. I don't care where they came from or how they live their life. I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody to learn about them. And I think we all need to kind of take some time to chill out and don't get played. We are being played. And if you don't see it, like, I don't know how to help you. I don't know. Like, other than to
You're
just,
helping right now by calling it out. I was listening to somebody who talked about how to stop authoritarianism, and the way that it has always been stopped is when neighbors start telling each other what's going on, like
yeah,
breaking through the bullshit, the propaganda. Keith?
One of my favorite one-panel cartoons that I love that sort of sums this whole thing up is the one where a very Rupert Murdoch-looking man, it's a cartoon sketch, is sitting there with a plate full of cookies in front of him. There's a worker across the table who has one cookie in front of him, and an immigrant at the end. And the Murdoch character says, "That guy wants part of your cookie."
yeah,
But he's got the whole plate of cookies. This is where we're at with the oligarchs and Trump in particular. And that kind of thing, my stress level went up, funnily enough, not when the cabinet spent 3.5 hours blowing smoke up Trump's ass, but when the oligarchs and the oligarchs went in
yeah.
there. Bill Gates and they're in there doing the same thing. Holy cow! What does that mean? That, can I give you a little more gold for your wall, and what do I get in return? Would you like 10% of my company? Oh, well, Jesus, I didn't plan on that. I mean, what on earth is going on in the United States that is so, as you said, Mark, like, that's cut them out of the equation for most of our dealings, but there's that level of craziness and insanity that we just can't. We have to watch because it's going to affect us whether we want or not. It's that old, mouse sleeping next to the elephant routine. So it's so scary in so many ways, but we are being manipulated so far. I mean, instantly. But there wasn't even basically an hour or two after the assassination of Charlie Kirk before it was, they're after us. They're taking their guns. They're going to do this. We need to get more arms. They? Who the hell are they? It's like some
Exactly.
crazy person. And the governor of Utah, who I thought was particularly good in
Hmm.
this 3-day crisis, he said, and I thought it's something that sort of sums up all of it. He says, "I was really hoping and actually praying that it wasn't one of our people, that it wasn't someone from Utah." And how many groups are saying the same thing? Please don't let it be a left. Please don't let it be because we all know it's wrong. We know in our hearts it's wrong.
Yep.
And we don't want whoever that shooter was to be one of us. But as he said, but that prayer didn't answer the way I wanted it to. And it was just some Utah. I can't judge. We don't know yet enough facts, but
Yeah.
it was a man from Utah. And so I think that's where we're all at right now. We're so scared that something that some crazy person does is going to affect us when we had
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to do with it, but we could get tarred with that brush because of the way it's they and them and left and right, and your opponents are your enemies, and we're not at war with our political opponents.
Right.
That takes my level of stress up, and in particular, I thought the assassination this week absolutely it's got me worried. I mean, I'd like to ignore the U.S., but this really does have me worried.
How can we ignore the US when they keep talking about us and wanting to take us? I mean, I've said to so many US people, I'll stop talking about your country when you take our country's name out your president's mouth. How about we start there? And to the point about the Oval Office and the gold, I was going to make a golden shower joke because that's what it looks like to me, or like a Timu version of what they have in Russia. It's such a bad, cheap ripoff. It looks ridiculous. So much is ridiculous, but we cannot ignore that there is some seriously scary shit going on behind that ridiculousness. We do not want it in Canada, and I deeply appreciate that you guys can bring some laughter to it, and I deeply appreciate Mark Carney is our Prime Minister right now. He is making our country stronger, and I deeply call out Pierre Poilievre, who, as leader of the opposition, is going beyond just opposing what Carney is doing. I think he is making Canada look weaker with his rhetoric, and I hope he stops it. That's all I can ask for at this point. I'm really happy to see the premiers, Conservative and otherwise, standing up for Canada. We are stronger together. We are stronger united. And every single day that we are not at war, every single day that we continue to live in this peaceful country with values that are Canadian values, not American values, we need to celebrate that. We need to spend more time with our friends and our neighbors. We need to share conversations like this one that are about love, not war, and that are about doing what we need to do as a country to stand up for ourselves and create, I hope, the strongest century that Canada's ever had. I believe that's possible if we feel that way and we work together to achieve it, and we don't fall into these terrible divided rabbit holes that we're seeing come out of the MAGA movement. We can be critical. We don't always have to agree, but that's the beauty of living in a democracy and the beauty of living in Canada. So thank you so much, Mark Cripps and Keith Leslie. I'm sure there will be hundreds of comments on this conversation, as there are every Scandal panel. Like, subscribe, share them. Tell us what you think. I read them all, even the ones that I don't think are particularly nice to me. I don't care. You get to express your opinion in Canada and on the OShow. Let's not push hate, but let's push strong criticism of policies and actions so we can build a better democracy. Take care, guys.
Have a great weekend.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. And with a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. Yeah, there's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. You gotta stand for something or fall for it all. Canada, you hear the call of the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow, OShow.
Your merch band.